Welcome to this episode of Sunny Silver Linings. This week we are joined by Shawn Walsh. Shawn is the former CEO of Paradigm Computer Consulting, a company he started and grew to locations across 4 states before being acquired by a national IT service provider. Presently, Shawn is the CEO of his next venture, Encore Strategic Consulting. Shawn teaches business owners how to achieve higher profits, grow their business, and prepare for exit. And as always, your host, Mr. Sonny Kaila, the founder and CEO of IT by Design. And Sonny, look at you. It's our first episode with you back in your office there in Jersey during the pandemic time. So things are getting better. I missed that skyline behind you.
Yeah, I'm just so excited to be in the office today. It's my second visit today, starting March. And I'm just so excited. It's just so nice to just be in the office today and do our first podcast from the office. And I hope it stays this way, that I can come here at least if 2 days in the office. That will be a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you. And Shawn, thank you so much for joining us today. I am just so excited about our episode today because you bring in so much hands-on experience. And so that is so powerful, because a lot of educators in the channel, they have not experienced that MSP way themselves, that journey that you start as an MSP entrepreneur, and you have been there, done that, and you have been involved with a lot of peer groups, with a lot of, I remember going to the Northeastern group here, the ConnectWise group, and that's where we met for the first time. Yep. So being actively involved in the community gave you so much exposure, so much experience interacting with other leaders, and I want to talk about that experience. So thank you once again for joining us today. And let's start with our master question. And the master question, Shawn, is, if you were the MSP owner running MSP today, and during this pandemic, what are the top 3 things that you will focus on and laser focus on?
And Sonny, thank you for having me on. This is great. And I always love talking with you and other business leaders, because, that's how I learn so much, because I'm always surrounding myself with smart people and, people who challenge one another. So this is a lot of fun. The top 3 things that I am telling clients to focus on right now is number 1, get lightning focused on a vertical market. You bring way more value to your clients when you can be an expert in a specific industry and bring more than just IT knowledge to the table. And that is so important right now. During this pandemic, and I don't work with just MSPs, I work with other business owners, and everybody is just looking for business solutions. And to that point, the other thing that I try to impress on the MSPs that I work with is stop talking about technology. Stop having server room conversations, have boardroom conversations. You need to stop talking about your business from your perspective, and you need to talk about it from the perspective of your client. They don't care what the underlying technology is. What they care about is, what are the business solutions that you're going to solve for them, and how are you going to prioritize that? To that point, what I wanted to talk about today was a new book, Fix This Next, by Mike Michalowicz. I've joined Mike Michalowicz's consulting organization because I really like their intellectual property and their materials. But it really, this book in particular, goes really to the heart of having a methodology for identifying business problems. And certainly the entrepreneurs can use it themselves, because in this time of COVID, we just don't have time to be making mistakes. You need to know what is the problem that you should be working on most right now. And you can then take that process and your knowledge to your clients to have business discussions to help them understand what are the problems that you should be helping them to solve at this moment to get the maximum return on investment.
Yeah, awesome. Great points. And let's take a deep dive into vertical. Uh, so, uh, so you want entrepreneurs, especially MSP entrepreneurs, to focus on that vertical. Why it is so critical, and if there is an MSP where they don't specialize in one vertical, what are the key things that they need to do to make sure that they're able to transform effectively from a very, very, like, I am everything for everyone approach to I am the best in class, or best in class of best in class in this particular vertical. What's your advice there?
Really learn how to communicate the business solutions that your solutions solve, and don't talk about them from a technical perspective. Most business owners who are not in the technical space really don't have a deep understanding of that. Even if they do, you're certainly going to be able to go deeper than they can. And sometimes they find that intimidating. But when you talk to them about their business solutions and return on investment and how they can maximize efficiency and time and process, when you talk that language, they understand, and more importantly, they feel like you understand their business better. And some people go very deep in one particular vertical, but you can also go deep in a few different verticals. There's been a running joke for many years that if you have more than three clients in any one industry, you're now an expert in that industry. And there's a little bit of truth to that, but think about the solutions that your clients in common industries use and how they use those to solve business issues. Again, don't have MCSE discussions, have MBA discussions. And use the knowledge that you've gained from bringing solutions into different companies to talk about it from the result perspective for the business and not the technical perspective.
Yeah, and clients are hungry for someone, a strategic partner, coming in and having that boardroom conversation, having that business to business conversation where you are helping them drive strategy, or basically looking at, okay, how technology can help them advance, especially now where everything is disrupted by this virus, and technology is required for every single business. There's one thing that this disruption have done, it made majority of the businesses in this world more dependent on technology. So how can they leverage technology to advance their business? How can they thrive? That's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. So can you talk to us a little bit about what entrepreneurs need to do to make sure that they are solving right problems?
Absolutely, Sunny. So, being entrepreneurs, we tend to go 110 miles an hour. And, I think of if you've ever gone to a carnival or a circus and you see the plate spinner and they're running around and they're spinning all the plates and they're trying to keep them from hitting the ground. And oftentimes we as entrepreneurs, and myself guilty of this, pride ourselves that we can keep all the plates spinning at once. But it's a pretty tiring task and it leads to a lot of burnout. And a lot of us think that we're just going to go on our gut with what's the next priority that we should be going with. But, gut is not always the best director. And a great example of that is, if you remember a couple of years ago, Amanda Eller, she was the woman who she went on a hike in Hawaii, and she got lost in the woods for 14 days. And when they talked to her, she said, I thought I had a pretty good sense of direction, and I just went with my gut. And there's a funny thing about human nature. When you get lost in the woods, and being an avid hiker, I know this, and my friends all make fun of me because I always make sure I have a compass, because I know this. But when you go on your gut, if you're lost, you tend to go in circles. And that's what she did for 14 days. And sometimes we as business owners go in circles, and we wind up trying to solve the same things over and over again. So we need a compass. So in the book that I had mentioned, Fix This Next, Mike Michalowicz talks about the business hierarchy of needs. And what he did was he was studying, he was looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and he saw this correlation. And to take it back to high school psychology class, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we start at the bottom level with physiological needs, things like air, water, shelter. Then we go into safety needs and personal security. And then we go up to love and belonging, and then self-esteem. And then the highest level of Maslow's hierarchy is self-actualization. But the key to Maslow's hierarchy is that no matter how far we get, when something goes wrong and we slide back down the hierarchy, we have to address the lowest level item first. Okay, think about it. If Sonny, tomorrow, you sold your business and you were celebrating and you're really hitting that self-actualization at the top, and you go out for a big dinner to celebrate with your family, and you cut off a piece of steak and you're chewing on it, just thinking about all these great things you've accomplished, and all of a sudden you start choking. Okay, you just went from level 5 to level 1 because now the only thing you care about is getting air and hoping somebody in the room knows the Heimlich maneuver. So you slide back down to level 1, but once you fix it, hopefully somebody knows the Heimlich, gets that piece of steak out, you can go right back to level 5. Well, Mike came up with the business hierarchy of needs, and in the business hierarchy of needs, we come up with the same type of hierarchy of items that need to be addressed. And the idea is there's a tool in which we evaluate what are the issues in our business and where do they fall within the hierarchy. And the idea is that we should always be focusing on the item that falls the lowest in the hierarchy first, and then work our way up. The interesting thing that he found when coaching clients with this methodology to test it is that sometimes when you solve the lower level issue, it solved some of the higher level issues. So you weren't making redundant efforts of trying to solve interrelated things because you solved the source instead of the symptom, and you were able to move on. And he breaks that down into the lowest level in business is sales. You have to have money coming in. So sales is the first level. Then we get into profit. If you have sales, you have to be profitable before you can continue on. The next level is order. This is where we really get into team alignment and making our business efficient. And then we get into the two highest levels, which is impact, where we're really adding value for our clients beyond the transactional level. And then finally, legacy, where we're figuring out how the business is going to continue on without us after we sell it, or we retire, or we have staff that takes over, or whatever your exit strategy is. And there's a series of questions that you go through to ask, and you do this self-evaluation. But the great thing is it only takes about 15 minutes. And now you can pinpoint which is the thing that you should fix next. And you work on that. And once that level has been taken care of, then you can move on to the next level. And, it was so simple and it was so obvious, that when I first read it, I'm like, of course, with so many things in business, why didn't I think of this myself? Or why didn't anybody come up with this sooner? But I've put it to the test with clients in both big and small companies, in startups and established. And it really resonates with everybody so far. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback on it. I'm encouraging clients that I work with to use it about every quarter, because remember, this is a moving target. And at any point, you can be high up in the hierarchy and you can quickly slide down and have to go back to dealing with a level 1 or level 2, but you fix it and then you might go right back up to level 4 or so. And what I do find is that when businesses are newer and in startup mode and, more of a operational immature level, they tend to operate in the lower levels more often. But as companies mature, they tend to operate at the higher levels. And as a matter of fact, the hierarchy is divided into two sections. And the three lower levels are the get sections, because that's where you're getting profit, you're getting process, you're really understanding the fundamentals of the foundations of building a business. And the higher levels are called the two highest levels are called the give levels, because now you're giving back to the community. You're helping your employees hit their self-actualization. You're helping your clients in their success. And hopefully you're establishing a lasting legacy for yourself and the company that you've built. So it's very common sense. It's very simple, but it really helps us decide what we should be working on. I mean, and I'm a big reader, and I can't do anything without recommending 3 or 4 books. But Traction is very popular now, and I certainly hope any business leader has read that. But even in Traction, what do? We list all the issues, and then we decide what's the most important one. But we're doing it by our gut. So think of it, going back to my original analogy, this is your map. This is how you figure, this is the path to figure things out, but this is your compass to figure out where you're starting from and what's the order and what direction does the path go in. So for everybody out there using Traction, Fix This Next is really a really nice tool that dovetails in there with it. And I work with a lot of different tools. But you made a comment earlier, and maybe it's a talk for another day, but strategy is so important right now. And most people, when they talk about strategy, they're really talking about tactics. And Traction, again, an excellent framework on which to execute a strategy, but it's not really necessarily a tool that really develops a strategy. And you need things like Fix This Next or some of the other strategy tools that are out there to really make that execution mean the most. Sure. So as I mentioned, the book is Fix This Next by Mike Michalowicz. I was lucky enough to be one of the people who got to proofread the book and test it out. And I have some tools for anybody that's watching the podcast if they'd like. And it's a Fix This Next evaluation questionnaire that you can see what are the questions that you should ask. We have an excerpt from the book. And I have a worksheet that one of my fellow consultants put together, which you can run the assessment in your business very simply. I also have a link to an online version of the assessment that you're welcome to take. And for anybody who goes online and takes the assessment, I'll pick 5 people and send them a free copy of the book.
Yeah, so Shawn, that's great advice. Fix This Next. It's so powerful. How to apply this Fix This Next concept in the situation that we are in? Because the situation is changing almost every day, every week, with the states opening up. One week you get one piece of information, then the next week things are changing. So it's very challenging for entrepreneurs because of that situation being very dynamic. Is there anything that you can think of where we need to kind of, in order to adopt this idea in the situation that we are in, do you have any thoughts there?
Absolutely. I mean, with the dynamic nature of the situation, time really is of the essence. And our clients aren't going to have the patience for us to come up with the right answers in the same time frame that they would have in normal times. So by taking the Fix This Next assessment, you're going to pinpoint issues much quicker, going to be able to respond to them more accurately, and move on. So, and that certainly is going to give your client some peace of mind that you are understanding their sense of urgency in this time. I mean, that unprecedented time. So really, this is going to help you move faster, more effectively, and more efficiently, which right now, that really is, the people who can do that are going to be the ones who come out on top of this. Because if you spend too much time making mistakes, they're going to move on because it's just too critical right now. They just don't have time for the learning process that they normally would in normal times.
So it's a lot more important because of the situation for us to consider this idea. Because situation is changing, you need tools, you need frameworks, you need a good system that can help you pivot quickly and be able to thrive as an organization.
Exactly. There's so much in business that we learn through trial and error. And normally that's fine. We try a couple of things, the old adage of fail fast, fail better.
Yeah.
Right now, we don't have the luxury of being able to fail 2 or 3 times before we get it right. So any tools that can help us get it right the first time, you got to be putting them in there, because that is going to be your competitive differentiator, that you can move quickly and accurately right now as this situation develops.
A lot of very, very valuable insights, Shawn. And this is what I was referring to in the beginning when I'm like, Shawn is an entrepreneur with lots of hands-on experience, where you took this business and scaled it effectively to a very, very different level, where only probably 10% of MSPs get there. So so much wisdom, so much experience. Thank you so much for sharing with our partners today.
My pleasure, Sonny. Thank you very much for having me on. And if anybody in your audience would like to have a conversation, they are free to reach out to me.
That's a perfect segue, Shawn. If people are interested in engaging your services, they want to, bring you in, have you help them grow. What's the best way to contact you?
Shawn at EncoreSC.com. That's Encore Strategic Consulting. So Shawn at EncoreSC.com. That's also our website. And, and it doesn't even have to be a sales pitch. I'm happy just to have conversations with other business people, because, I often get as much out of it as I hopefully give.
And I know you spent some time in Aruba as well. Can people reach out to you when you're in Aruba using the same contact information?
Absolutely. My new business is mobile, and you can see the scuba tank here behind me. I teach scuba diving in the winter a few days a week. So as long as I'm not underwater, you can usually get a hold of me.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Shawn, for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonny, and thank you, Todd. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Shawn. Thank you, Sonny. And to the viewers, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this episode. We hope you'll take away a couple of golden nuggets. And if you did, please honor us with a like, a share, and even a subscribe. And those resources Shawn mentioned, we're going to make sure that those are linked right up above or right down below, depending on where you're watching this episode. And we'll see you next time.